If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is...
Pato.
It's actually kind of early. Usually we have a little pregame talk beforehand. I didn't get to talk to you at all. How was your weekend?
It was okay. What was this weekend? This
I
weekend
know.
was nothing crazy. Yeah.
Same.
No. Well, it's been a very you always get to pimp your creative stuff. I'm gonna talk about myself for a minute here.
Please.
Yeah, it's been a really crazy couple of weeks. The whole month of November I was doing NaNoWriMo, so I finished that up as of Monday. Today was my first day without that, but I was shooting second unit stuff for this movie coming out called The People's Joker, that's being written directed by Vera Drew. She's a editor for like the Tim and Eric show and a bunch of stuff on Adult Swim. And basically what she's doing is taking footage from all the different Batman movies and re-editing it and using like kind of deep fake technology and crafting together along with stuff that she's shooting herself like on green screen and shooting her own like take on the Joker story and kind of reusing all that material and transforming it into like this she's trans, this like trans allegory about the Joker and the Harlequin and all this stuff. And it's a very interesting project, and it's also like super fucking illegal, which is would have been, because obviously she doesn't have the rights to any of this shit
that's
from
true.
Warner Bros. But like for some, you can just do stuff, and sometimes it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't know. Do you remember Escape from Tomorrowland?
No.
Okay, so this was a movie.
Something about Disney. Oh, wasn't it? Wasn't
Yes.
it one that was filmed on an iPhone at Disney?
Well, no, it was commercial equipment, but I don't think it was just iPhones. But basically, yeah, they snuck into Disney World and shot this whole fucking movie, and shot it on the rides and the theme parks and the hotels.
I've heard of that. I haven't watched it, but I've heard of it.
It's interesting. It's really interesting, and they kind of kept it a secret when it premiered at Cannes, and they didn't publicize what it was. It was a secret screening, and you showed up and then you saw this movie. And Disney couldn't really do anything to them for it because there's nothing saying that you can't like videotape yourself at a theme park, so they were, it probably pissed a lot of people off, but they kind of got away with it. And I guess the copyright laws are somewhat the same thing because of the way the footage is being repurposed and re-edited, that somehow it's not copyright infringement or something.
Okay.
So this project is like already moving forward. She did a Kickstarter
so it's okay for you to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm just doing like a very small part. Okay. Originally I was what I was gonna do changed a little bit. Originally I had written some material for it that we were gonna use, and then she was originally going for an R rating, and the stuff that I wrote was very R rated, and then ended up kind of decided to want to go PG-13. So I just kind of had to shoot some shoots, like I guess basically it's B-roll. So there's a character in the DC universe called the Creeper.
Yeah.
And he's like a talk show host. And the first time that the Joker sees a trans person portrayed on TV, it's like on Jerry Springer, when like some disgruntled trans person runs out into the, comes out on Springer and like gives everyone the finger and shit. So what we did today was we filmed the stuff that's going to be on TV.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So it's a very small portion of it. It took about 4 hours. But that's what it was cool to do it, because I haven't done movie stuff since probably this summer. We did a short film for the 48-hour film project. So it was nice to spend a month writing working on short stories and stuff, and
Getting back into it.
then boom, immediately switch gears and then film all day today, and on top of working both my jobs. So, because I never talk about it, and I for good reason, but I have a side business that I run to that has nothing to do with creativity stuff. It's engineering shit that I do inside, and so it's just been like very. It's good in a lot of ways because it requires a lot of me. So I've been very busy, but at the same time, like it's also there's very much highs and lows. Where like
Well, it's exhausting to always be moving. That's for sure.
well, you know what? That doesn't. It's not the physical tiredness that gets to me. It's the emotional roller coaster. It's the having like all this stuff going on, and then the second that you're done with it, like you just crash and you're like, what do I do now? Like, what am I supposed to sit on the couch and watch the fucking Simpsons?
I relate to that. But that's also why I never finish anything either. Like I'll kind of burn out on things and be like, okay, well, let me go ahead and switch gears and do this. And so, I mean, I don't know. I have like a opposite weird problem, but kind of similar.
Yeah. I mean, I always need to be doing stuff. I always need to be doing stuff. And I'm lucky enough to where I'm always doing stuff. Like we do this every Tuesday, But yeah. So going back to the NaNoWriMo thing, the reason I wanted to talk about that is because, you talk a lot about synchronicity and that. And, basically I spent the project that I did this year is an anthology of short stories called Songs About Fucking.
Okay.
And each chapter related to a different song and is a different short story about people fucking, more or less. There's some liberties are taken there.
Sure.
But it's spending and so a lot of the stuff is rooted in my past. It's anecdotal, right? Some of it isn't. Some of it's like straight up creative writing. But some of it's also kind of like taken from episodes of my life. So like the past month, I've been spent like totally like looking in the rearview mirror about my life and listening to music and just like trying to remember what it was like when I took a girl out to lunch junior year in high school and stuff. You know what I mean? And like
how very personal for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, all that stuff is,
True.
I don't get how people sit there and write like Tom Clancy shit. You know what I mean? Like that's bizarre to me. Like
stuff you've never ever experienced. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I was speaking with I had a date with a writer this weekend, and he was talking about this book that he's been working on and how anyway, his main character in the book is like really into motorcycles, and he's like, and I don't know anything about motorcycles, so I just spent like the last 6 months just researching motorcycles. I'm like, okay, so I mean, I guess that's what they do. Then they take up an interest, and I mean, then he's able to portray it through his character because his character starts off not knowing anything about motorcycles and goes through the learning process also and things like that. So, but I guess it's still a shared experience.
So what made him pick motorcycles in the first place, I would ask?
I guess I'm not really sure. He was kind of explaining the plot to it. And I think he just I think the character ended up getting a hobby because he had his little brother died or something, like in a car accident or something. So he just to preoccupy his time with motorcycles. But why would he choose motorcycles? I have no idea. The guy's really into music. You'd think he'd choose music, but no.
Yeah.
He chose motorcycles. I'm not sure. I don't write like that. So I can't, I don't know much about it.
Yeah. My stuff, like I've been lucky enough to have like a bunch of weird different jobs and met a lot of weird different people.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to talk about somebody that works at a gaming store, and it's easy for me to talk about somebody that goes to community college for automotive repair, and it's easy for me to talk about someone that has a white collar job working in public relations, and it's easy for me to talk about a girl from Iowa that moved to Chicago after graduation. You know what I mean? Like I can do that, but it's because I met those people and I've been those people and I've fucked those people so that I know all their stories. You know what I mean? So I guess there's different ways to go about it, but like, the way that I've always kind of created, it's always been like I make mixtapes out of life. And like,
Yeah.
You go and you experience stuff, and then you take a bit from here and you take a bit from there, and then you take creative liberties. Like some of the shit I did, there's one story that like takes place in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, but granted, though, the whole point of that story is that like even in the future, kids make out in wood paneled basements to Aerosmith and fuck on couches. You know, even though it's set in the year 27, and like there's still I wrote like weird future speak where people,
but
you know what I mean?
So the words aren't relevant anymore, but Aerosmith is cool.
Of course. No, but like they have like this total like I don't know if you've ever seen A Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
But like you know how they talk about droogies and like it's shit like that where they have just this like bizarre fucking like weird language that they speak in. But, like so that was like once again like don't know what the future is going to be like, but I can imagine I know all about screwing in Midwestern basements while listening to Aerosmith. I think that's a universal thing that a lot of people identify with. So.
Well, that's true.
You know,
doesn't matter what year you're from, as long as it's.
And the juxtaposition between that and the future hopefully gets a laugh from the reader. That is the intended result. So
that's fair. That's fair.
So yeah, I think a lot of this stuff is going to pop up. You know, so my wife's of course is like, well, when do I get to read it? I'm like, fuck, never. But I'm sure some of it's going to pop up in my Medium here and there. There's different chapters are like, you know, because you do anything that's a first draft, like right. Oh my god, some of it's fucking god awful. Like a third of it's like terrible.
Right.
But some of it's good, and the cool thing about making each chapter its own deal is that some of it's like very ready to go. Some of it's very good, and some of it needs a little bit more work. So the stuff that's like kind of good. Which also is, and mind you, it's all smut too for the most part, you know. So that's kind of interesting too. And I've noticed that on Medium, there's a high, market for that. A lot of people like to go on a Medium to read smut because I guess they don't know where literotica is or whatever. But so I might throw some stuff up there.
I mean, let's face it. No matter where it's at, smut makes money.
Right. I mean, my Medium blog now, like it earns me like an Egg McMuffin a month, you know, which is kind of cool and readers. So like, you know, maybe this will get me the Coke and the hash brown.
Well, you know, it's hard. I know that because, you know, sometimes I'll, you know, post something about the, you know, the happenings of UFO disclosure. And then I'll post a picture of just in my bra. And so it's like, and you think you would think that like, me just being in my bra would like garner me more followers, but sometimes I'll lose them because they're just not there for that kind of content. So it does happen.
Wow.
It does happen. Yeah. I mean, it's surprising to me too, but it does happen.
You know, I don't know. There's no making everybody happy.
Well, right. Exactly. I'm just like, I'll just put everything out there and, you know, you can stay for the parts that you want or leave if the parts that bother you that much. But, you know, I'm me. So that's what I market is me.
Yeah, I guess.
And I just happen to have big titties and I like aliens, you know?
I'm lucky that, well, I also have big titties and like aliens, but I don't.
Have you ever taken a picture in your bra pad? I mean, it might sell.
No.
You might be surprised.
God, I have a story that we got to do that. The 2 episodes we keep threatening to do are children and fucking, not 2 completely separate topics. But
you got to be careful the way you say stuff.
I know. Well, yeah, you want to talk about something weird, like writing these stories, like some of them take place in high school. And I was almost wondering, like, can you really go into graphic detail? Now, granted, like, you know, I kind of got started when I was in sophomore year or whatever. And most people, I think, kind of get started around that time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how graphically can you describe
Where's
stuff
the line there?
before your senior year? I mean, let's just put it like that.
I understand
you know what
that
I mean?
Because I've made a couple of jokes on here. Like on this show and just, I mean, in real life, somebody will be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that was my name in high school. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really bad, doesn't it? You can't just make sexual jokes about being in high school, but
I feel like that's such a shared experience though, that like most people had. Right. So I don't know where like the outrage police get off, like getting, you know, up in arms about that, because it's not like isn't that? I mean, I guess the people that get upset are the people that didn't have that kind of high school experience, to where they're like, what? How could you? 15-year-olds aren't blowing each other.
You're
Like,
probably right about that. I'm always shocked when I
they
hear
are.
like somebody's like, "Oh, I didn't lose my virginity until 20 something," and I'm like, "What? What was wrong with you in high school?"
Oh my God. I have, once again, I'm going to have to bite my tongue on that because, yeah, it's, I guess, different strokes. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I was like, wow, you must have got, so what'd you get on the ACT?
Well,
That's what I was
speaking
going
of
to ask him. You must have done really fucking good.
I really didn't. I don't even know if I qualified as going to high school. Technically, I was never there. I flunked out. I graduated eventually. I got my GED eventually, but I did flunk out. I didn't flunk out. I just never went back. Just left one day and never returned. And I was too busy doing the drugs and having the sex. So
I went to an all boy high school. So yeah, I went, but that's because like that's where my friends were. Like I think it's because
though.
I didn't. It was, well, I didn't know any better. I didn't realize how much it fucked me up until I got older, and I had to be around women, and I didn't know how to do it. Like I remember being like 18 years old and like sitting in a class with girls and being like, "Oh my God, like what the fuck do I didn't know what to do." And I mean, I knew, yeah. And it's not that I was like, it's not that I didn't know how to talk to women, but it's like I knew how to like hit on girls at the mall. And I knew how to like take girls to high school dances, and I knew how to like bang them, but like I didn't know how to just like be in an English class with them. You know what I mean? And like sit next to them and not be like predatory.
That's a lot of wow. But I'm impressed with a lot of toxic masculinity and work through there for real.
I did. It took me. It wasn't until I had a daughter that I was like, okay, I need to reevaluate.
Better late than
how
never.
I'm doing this.
Fine. That's good. I'm proud of you. I am.
Thank you.
But anyway, going forward, I was saying on the topic of titties and aliens. So I finally went to the Air Force Museum here at and it was it was an experience, that's for sure.
It looked like you had fun. You looked happy.
It was fun. Well, I got to go with Anne. I love Anne. That's always a good time. My kid was there. Her kid was there. The kids were happy. Especially, we both have only child. So our children were happy to see other kids,
Right.
It's nice for them. But no, we had fun. I enjoyed it more than I thought, cause I'm not really into aviation and whatnot. It's never been very interesting to me, but it turns out when you're in a hangar with all these giant planes, it's a lot more interesting than you thought. So it was cool. There was a lot of stuff we couldn't do because of the Rona and stuff, but it's a big ass place, and we were there for like 3 hours and still didn't get to see everything. It got to a point to where we had like so much time left, and Anne's like, if we want to go to the space area, we got to like book it and go now. And so we did, and we booked it and went all the way back to the space area. There's like a big room, like a big circle room, and it's just all rockets, and rockets are huge. And that was cool. And then they have a whole space shuttle that you can like go into and like walk through. And then they had the Avrocar, the UFO. And that sure was an experience. Now the interesting thing about the Avrocar is that it's not made for space exploration. That's not what it was designed to do.
Right. Can you explain that real quick? Because I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the Avrocar is basically like it's like humans' version of a flying saucer. It's a disc. It's a disc shaped plane, basically.
It looks like the Jetsons car.
It does. Yes, you're right. It does, because it's got like the dome that like you stick.
That you would sit in, like a personal like Jetsons, like like 2 or 3 people could sit in it. And
yeah. It's pretty cool. And then it's basically like when you think of a UFO, that's what you think of, is that thing.
Right. Kind of. Yeah.
That's what it looks like. And I think they did it. They were working on it more so in like the 1950s, and then I think by 61 it was scrapped, and I don't really, it's just because it just didn't, it's not that it didn't work. It flew. There's footage of it flying and you can see it. I don't think it ever really got far off the ground, actually, but you can see it, and it's interesting. It's an interesting thing. But what was really interesting about it is that the way that the museum is set up is it goes by time periods, okay? And typically, how it goes with the time periods is the different wars. And so you've got like the beginning of aviation, which is like the Wright brothers and all that, because it's located at Wright Field. That's what it's named after. It's named after the Wright brothers. And so, you've got all that, and then you go into World War I, and then II, and and through time and history. But then you've got this entire section of space, and the Avatar has nothing to do with space, but that's where it's at.
Okay.
So, why'd they put it there? It was bizarre. It's like, why would you put this here? And then, so that was interesting. And then we go to which, if you want to see it, go to my Twitter or my Instagram at It's Ashers and look at it there. But most of you probably already have. Anyway, then you go to the gift shop, okay? And the gift shop sells all kinds of alien shit, all kinds of UFO shit. Like, they're not afraid of like hiding this at all at this point. It's really weird. And now I understand making money off of it, but they have like whole ass t-shirts of like alien invasions that say National Air Force Museum on it. It's like, what?
Now, is this like a government, like, do you know like how this is structured? Because it's at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Is it affiliated with the U.S. Air Force,
Yes.
or is it like civilian run?
So
is it like some historical society?
Well, okay. So no, I believe it is run by the Air Force, by the Air Force. And it's, hold on, let me pull this up here, because I did a good job, and I did a little bit of research on it. So you can volunteer to work there, or I think they do hire some staff on, and you don't have to have clearance to work there. It is technically, and I didn't know this because I've never been. So the part that I always drive by, and I'm like, oh, that's the Air Force Base. Oh, that's it. Come to find out, it's not even the Air Force Base. It's the whole thing is the museum, and it's fucking massive. And it has to be, because it's got planes and shit in it. I did not realize that it wasn't actually physically attached to the Air Force Base, and it's not. Now, they're all technically the same property, because the Air Force owns all of it, all of the area that it's in, but the actual museum is like way, way detached. I mean, pretty much in the next town over from where the Air Force Base actually is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you said it's all spread out.
Yeah, like I said, it's basically like it runs over the course of like 3 different cities. The actual area does, and then so the Air Force Museum is in one, and then they've got like base housing and like civilian stuff in another area, and then they have like the actual Air Force Base in a totally different section. And like I said, I had no idea. I thought this whole time that it was the same thing. So I even though we went that day, the kids were hungry, so we left and had dinner and stuff. We didn't get a chance to really drive around. So I need to go back and I guess go scout out the actual, base itself, and, see how far I can get into it. Not far, I can tell you that, but you can get a little bit far. But I also saw, I saw a job posting posted somewhere. I don't remember where. It was like on like a local Facebook group or something. And it was for, something basic, some front desk clerk, basic ass job at the base. However, you need a special type of clearance to even apply for the job. You don't qualify if you don't have that clearance.
Oh.
So I don't know what it's for exactly. And then Anne's aunt, I believe it was Anne that was telling me this. Her aunt works for the Air Force Base, and she works on their computers and shit. And she says that, whenever they have like an issue with the computers, they will bring the computers to her home and she will work on them at home and then drop them back off, but she's not allowed to go there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because obviously they have civilian positions. Like they have places where civilians answer the phones and can be secretaries. Why can't they have a room where you can come work on computers? You know what I mean? Like, why does it have to be in her house?
Why is it got to be like that? And then on top of that, that's like all she will mention about her job. She will not say anything else. Won't answer anything. Whenever you try to ask her anything, she's like, nope. So, who knows what the fuck's on those computers? I'm not sure. It's so strange.
See, it's whenever people like kind of discount that these larger scale conspiracies could be happening, they always say like people can't keep their mouth shut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you expect 5 people to keep a secret. That's fucking insane. That would never happen. And I'm like, yeah, people like me and you can't keep a secret. But like there's people out there that like Anne's aunt that can very well keep their fucking mouth shut.
Right.
And if you can fill the room with those type of people, you know what I mean? Then yes, you very well could have 30 people standing around faking the moon landing, and everybody keeps their fucking mouth shut.
Well,
not that I don't think the moon landing was real. I'm just using it as an example.
Well, just like in last week's episode when Red was saying about the people that they need at the Church of the Subgenus are people that can cut the paper just because they can cut the paper. Those are the type of people that they hire at places like that for regular, not civilian work, but easy stuff like computer work or answering phones or, people that are just simple. And they aren't going to, obviously if you're working for a government agency, I'm sure they're not nice people and they probably threaten you quite a bit. And, if it's at the risk of like your own life or your family's or whatever, I'm sure you're not going to be, then running your mouth. There's a lot of people that wouldn't, that wouldn't get mixed up in it anyway. And so, or they just blindly follow whatever they're told. They could see a whole ass alien and they're like, oh, well that, they probably wouldn't even question it. But if they did, they'd be like, was that an alien? And they'd be like, no, that was so-and-so's, child. It's bring your kid to work day. And they're like, oh, yeah. It happens so often just because your brain can't comprehend what you're seeing when you see that kind of stuff a lot of the time. And, you know what, as crazy as that sounds, because you'd think you'd remember it. Well, I even shared it today on the Twitter page talking about, how this is kind of these are kind of fringe beliefs and, fringe experiences. And do more people than we think have these experiences? Yes, they do. They just don't understand that they have them because it's traumatic. It can be very traumatic to learn that things that you thought were real are not, and things that you didn't think were real are. And it's just, so yeah, you can absolutely not even know that happened and have it happen to you. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but it was fun. I mean, nonetheless, it was a very fun, interesting experience. I didn't talk to anybody because I was a little nervous. I mean, it sounds crazy, but when you're public about the stuff that you talk about, and if you really do believe that there's a bunch of hidden stuff going around, and you really do believe that the government watches for these types of people, then no, I'm not going to walk into the fucking Air Force Base and be like, hey, I'm going to talk to you about aliens and shit. Because if I'm not already on the radar, I don't want to put myself on the radar.
It sounds like they're putting themselves on the radar just to sell fucking t-shirts.
They definitely are. Yeah, we bought I bought a face mask with an alien on it. I got my daughter a blow up alien doll. Not a sex alien doll, just a blow up one. But it probably could be sex if you wanted to. But
yeah, anything's
but they have all kinds of stuff, and I was just like, wow, and it's crazy because there was no exhibits of aliens or anything like that. There was nothing like that. And then you get all of a sudden to the gift shop. Like, if you had no idea, if you were just a regular Joe walking in there into the museum, you wouldn't know that they had anything to do with aliens or UFOs, and you just walk to the museum. Even seeing the fucking Avro car, you'd be like, oh, that's cool. That was a weird product that we tried to make. And then you walk to the fucking museum, and then there's all this alien shit everywhere. Like, there's no reason to put it out there. They didn't. It was
maybe, I don't know. Maybe they've realized that that's not who goes to Air Force museums anymore, or just like random old people that don't know what the deal is.
Yeah.
Maybe they've looked at like the people that walk through the fucking door and said, you know what, we should sell these people. Blow up alien dolls.
It could be.
Can't keep on the shelf.
face mask. Yeah, it was wild, and everybody's buying the shit. It's like, wow. I mean, or it's just their way of being like, look, if we make a joke out of this, then obviously it can't be true, right? People believe that it's not true. So
I'm almost inclined to believe that because, and I normally don't. I'm very leery to believe in disinformation campaigns because it
right,
seems like just to like, oh yeah, well they're purposely being wrong. But when you think about it, like, look, they don't need the fucking money from these t-shirt sales.
no,
Like, it's not like this is some mom and pop stand in
right,
Roswell, New Mexico that tries to make money because there's no industry in that area. Like, this is the United States fucking Air Force, right?
right,
Like they don't need to sell you t-shirts to buy their next fucking batch of bombs,
right,
right? So
exactly,
so the fact that they're designing and manufacturing a product that teases alien invasions and then selling them on an Air Force base, like in a government run facility, like that
weird,
is,
right?
I mean, I think, yes. And I think that I don't necessarily think it's a smoking gun that proves anything one way or the other, but I think at the very least we can agree that it's weird,
It's weird,
you know?
yeah, it's strange, and so it was just a very interesting experience. And like I said, I definitely want to go back and
That would be an interesting meeting to read the transcripts from when they made that decision.
yeah,
You know what I
yes.
mean? That conversation. I would love to hear what that conversation
Whose
was
idea
like.
even was it? I mean, who was
Right.
like, hey, let's sell aliens? I
And
mean,
the gift shop. Like, listen, we have an Air Force museum on our Air Force base. Pop culture says that they brought the down, and not even really pop culture, like almost fringe conspiracy. Like Wright Patterson is like, it's not like everyone kind of knows what Area 51 in Roswell is,
right,
but Wright Pat's a little bit underneath that.
right,
And the fact that they said, okay, we got so many people coming here for this, like we're gonna make T-shirts and sell these T-shirts to these clowns, because really, what are they making? Like an extra 20, maybe 50,000? I don't know how much they make from these T-shirts, but like
yeah.
in the grand scheme of Air Force budgets, it's probably not that much. So where like they don't need the money,
And they
you
don't
know what I
even
mean?
have like they'll have like little, because the gift shop's not big or anything, but they'll have like little sections where like little tiny sections where it'll be like, oh, here's your blow up alien, here's your get your alien stuff.
Right.
And then they sell books, like legit books. There's like kids books about different alien sightings. And I should have taken video of all this. I don't know why.
I really
Um,
almost want to go online now and see if there's some kind of online component to their gift shop and see what they have,
see if you can find it.
because
Yeah, it's weird.
that to me is like, that's really interesting. The fact that they would have books about
Kids
alien
books,
sightings
and
geared
they're
towards,
like kids book. They're factual information, but they're towards kids. And then
that's got to be a fucking psyop.
there's like a
Not
book about Area 51. I mean, there's and it's like, why why is this here?
because that's got to be a psyop.
It
I mean,
has to
seriously,
be.
think about it. Like that's got to be part of like the disclosure. Like let's do this
Just
and let's
slowly
just see.
kind of bring it out, make it normal. Because again, there was no like exhibit. If there was like an exhibit at the museum that was all about aliens and shit, okay, fine. Then I'd be like, all right, that's they're probably giving you too much information. But there's nothing throughout the entire museum. And like I said, sure, there was some parts I missed, but for the most part, we saw everything, and there was nothing there about it. Especially you think it'd be in the space area. No, there's nothing about any of it. And then you walk into the gift shop, and there's books about Area 51 and alien encounters, and it's like, what for kids? So it's like,
Now,
it's just,
is it about now? Here's where I always make a very important distinction. Were the books about just sightings of craft, or were there books about meeting the occupants?
well, the one I'm pretty sure was about like contactees and people with significant signing. Like there's probably a Betty and Barney Hill in there. That other guy, I can't remember his fucking name.
Travis Walton.
Yes, they're probably in there. It was closing, so I really didn't get a chance to. I almost bought them. I was kind of blown away by that. I was like, and that's the first thing you see when you walk into the gift shop. It's right there. It's this little stand with like alien toys and plushies and moon rocks and shit, and then and like fucking books, and then like throughout the whole store, like they'll have like you can buy these model airplanes, but like also here's a build your own UFO kit. And
See, that always,
and
there's people that hold the opinion that the whole entire alien phenomenon is nothing but a false flag. That's like a false flag story that's been kind of cultivated over the years, right?
Okay.
And that the Roswell crash was like Russian
Oh
aircraft
yeah,
or
yeah.
Nazi aircraft, and we didn't want to admit that there was a more advanced culture than us, or that maybe they thought it was a UFO at first because we didn't know what the fuck it was, and the people inside were so badly burned from radiation or from whatever, or the Russians were using like pygmy midgets or some shit to fucking fly these things that when they recovered the bodies they were all fucked up. They thought that they
Something
were
terrestrial.
right, exactly. And then over the years these like craft that you're seeing, the reason that they look like, you know, you look at like crafts from like the UFO pictures from like the 50s and 60s, they look like stealth bombers, and a lot of people are like, yeah, because we developed stealth bombers because of those UFOs that were, you know, because of a technology exchange. It's like, okay, or it was experimental aircraft from us or from another country, and that now we've kind of released that this is what stealth bombers look like.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you start to look at that, like the lights in the skies and like this giant triangle craft and all shit like that is all just byproducts of a terrestrial space program, maybe even a secret space program, right? And that's all this stuff has ever been, and all the alien shit's all bullshit, right? There are no
Okay.
creatures from other planets, especially, and we talk about this all the time on the show, especially now that the science doesn't even match up anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that, I mean, when you think about it, for Right Pat to be selling books about Barney and Betty Hill, or the fucking Travis Walton one, which is a negative experience. You know what I mean? Like that's not something that you want to. There's nothing about the Travis Walton experience, Fire in the Sky. For those of you that are like, oh, that's something. Fucking think about Fire in the Sky. Why would you sit there and show that to your kid
Yeah.
and be like, aliens are real?
Well,
This is what
you know,
it's
and
like.
I'm not saying that was in there. I'm just saying
I
that.
know, but
Okay.
it just seems to me like that to me almost perpetuates the idea that this whole entire alien thing has always been bullshit and it's always been a
Oh,
smokescreen.
interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
because when Reagan got up in the 1980s, I'm sure you've heard about this. He got up at the UN and he gave that speech about how if an alien threat ever came to our world, it was in the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
And Reagan gets up and Gorbachev's there and all these people, and it's the UN. And he makes this speech about how if we ever faced a threat from an alien source, that we would put all of our petty squabbles aside and we would unite to fight a common enemy, right? And it was very weird that Reagan said that, and people kind of point to that as him making a stab at disclosure. But some people also point to that and say that it's exhibit A as to why this whole UFO thing in the first place might be a false flag, because it might be a way for the globalists to get everybody to kind of join arms together against this imaginary threat. Like if you can imagine Watchmen, right? I mean, it's a fucking perfect example. You familiar with the Watchmen comic book, the Watchmen
I
movie?
am
When the
actually.
giant squid alien comes down and fucking blows up New York,
Right.
and they think that then everyone, supposedly the Cold War ends and everyone kind of it causes world peace for a short period of time because everyone's united against these fucking squid monsters, you know. So yeah, and honestly, like when you tell me about that shit at the gift shop, that's the only connection I can make in my head. As that I think that's even further evidence of this whole thing being all bullshit. Because
Wow.
if there was even a remote chance that this shit was real, that's so fucking irresponsible. And you look at like why, like you have to look at like what narrative are you pushing? Like this is your like under the radar explanation, unless it's people just trying to make a fucking buck. But even then, it's like, why would you do that? Like you don't need the
100%.
money.
Well, so right. So I mean, like I said, when I see stuff like that, for me, it automatically goes to it's just soft disclosure. And you know they've been hiding this for so long, for almost 100 years at least now, and I think they're tired of hiding it. I think the more that we advance as a people, they understand that we could take the news a little bit easier. I think it would make more sense to have everybody know it, but they don't want to come out with a big press conference and be like, "Look, aliens are real." There's no like disclosure day. I just think that they're slowly peppering it in. I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's a band-aid that they're not ready to pull off, or it's a card that they're not really sure if they want to play. So if it's real, then you look at it as a band-aid coming off, right? Like this is the secret that we have not be a secret anymore. But if you look at it as like it's part of the globalist agenda, then when do you play that card?
Yeah, that's true.
When do you that's like one of your final moves because you do that. But you'd have to have proof of it. Like you'd have to back it up with something.
But I
Like you
think
couldn't just
that,
come out and say aliens are real. Like there's been all these sightings and stuff. People would want to see one. People would want one
oh
on
yeah,
on the news, or they'd want like something that you'd have to show people something that was concrete. But there's too many people on the internet that would look at that and be like, that's fucking bullshit.
yeah.
Because there's people that debunk videos all the time now. You know what I mean? So what proof are you gonna that's the thing about disclosure, that if they were to do that, what is their exhibit A gonna be?
Well, there's
Are they gonna
there's
walk an alien out on fucking CNN? No.
oh, maybe.
People would
Well,
fucking jump off roofs.
there's no reason to. There's no. So the thing is that a lot of people would freak out because it would collapse religion completely, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
And too many people would freak out, and then there's no reason. There's no. I mean, the cons definitely outweigh the pros in it. They have no reason to let us know that they're here and that they know they're here, all the way fully. And I think that. I think that they do. I think they get worried because there are a lot of people, and it's growing that more and more people are believing that there's aliens. Not just that there's. I think most people believe that there's aliens. I think that a lot of people believe that aliens have visited here, and then I think also a lot of people are starting to believe that our government knows that there's aliens. Not just our government, but the whole world. The whole world government knows that there's aliens. But there's no reason for them to tell us. We don't get anything from it. They don't get anything from it. Why would they tell us? Why would they just be like, oh, hey, by the way, at the risk of, again, like I said, collapsing religion. And possibly, I mean, gosh, if you collapse religion, you're possibly going to collapse society as a whole everywhere. And so, it's
Well, I think that's something that they're not sure about. I think there's a lot of variables in this equation, and I think religion's one of them. How much would we're kind of already a godless society? I mean, come on, let's face it. You know what I mean?
not yet. I mean, I don't
granted,
think so.
I think we're 2/3 of the way there. Really, I mean, can anyone express any kind of devout religious belief without being snickered at behind their back? I mean, I think we're 2/3 of the way there. I don't think we're all the way there, but I think we're getting there, and I think we're over half.
I like to see the statistics on it, but I think that more and more people are pulling away from religion. But a lot of people are.
To the point where if it was disproven or if something came along that challenged it, I don't think that it would have the detrimental effect to the structure of society the way it would have 30 years ago.
I don't know, Pat. You still got people at the damn Creationism Museum that just came out less than 10 years ago. So,
Yeah,
obviously those people exist still,
Yeah, but I don't know. I think those people just haven't been given very many options. I don't think those are the throw yourself off the roof type because aliens are real. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think I there's a part of me that's always like really considered just that this was all bullshit. I mean, look at the abduction thing, man. That was like such a big deal in the 80s and early 90s, and it's not anymore.
Yeah.
You don't hear anything about those cases, and those cases were all over the fucking place.
You're right.
In the 80s and 90s.
That's a good point.
And it was the predominant narrative of the fucking the UFO fucking conspiracy.
Right.
Was like this was happening. And now it's like it doesn't happen. It doesn't get talked about. And the reason I think is because it's too hard of a narrative to control. Because now you have to write dialogue for these fucking things, right? And what are they saying?
Yeah.
Are they still saying they're from Alpha fucking Centauri and here's a star map? But you can't, like I said, we can't do that anymore. Fucking science isn't there. So now it's all the evidence, right? Now the evidence is just fucking videotapes, right? Of fucking shit shooting around.
For the most part, yeah.
And this guy, because you don't have to talk to anybody, because there's no information exchange.
Well, it's easy. It's something anybody can do at any time,
That's my point. It's incredibly easy, and it doesn't require any kind of narrative. There's no plot being written. There's no storyline here. and that to me feels like, well, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there's a reason that everything's becoming very fucking dumbed down, and we're going back to basics. We're going back to lights in the skies and fucking flying saucers and shit, because that is something that doesn't require a meta narrative, And
I don't know. I think we're moving. I think we're moving past that. I mean, I do like. I see what you're saying. It is a lot of the evidence and stuff, but not really. Nowadays, people are more following in the line of, these aren't just extraterrestrials; they're ultra terrestrials, which would be kind of a new science, which would show that these species have also evolved since we're having more and more experiences with things like that are, instead of just lights in the sky and abductions. And if abductions was a thing, it's possible that whatever was abducting people had a funded program that they ran, and it was experimental, just like, when we run a trial of anything here. Hell, the fucking coronavirus vaccine. You're not going to work on the coronavirus vaccine forever. Eventually you're going to stop because you're going to find what you're looking for. Maybe that's what happened. We don't know. But
that is, you know what? Just to spend, like, I know we have to.
I know.
Fucking,
this isn't even what it is about.
We were talking about the Utah fucking monolith moving, but that is something that is such a weird thing to consider, especially someone my age that grew up in the abduction crazy 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Is that like, no, that stuff happened, but that was just a phase, and whatever they were looking for, they got, and then they left and they moved on.
The alien goth phase.
And it's so crazy to think that, like, because that would make sense. That really does, in a way, kind of make sense, because nothing lasts forever.
Right. They evolved just like we have.
Right. And that was it. And this was something that happened, and there were close encounters of the third kind that existed for a while, and there's no need for them anymore.
Right.
And they're still kind of flying around here and there, but they're more interested in the environment now, or whatever they're collecting, and it's no longer.
Or maybe they've gotten stealthier at abducting people to make it so that they're not conscious while it happens, so they don't remember.
Yeah, you take someone 20 seconds every night for a couple years, and the next thing you know, they're building tunnels on Mars.
I knew it was coming. I was waiting for it. So the monolith. Let's talk about the monolith real quick, because we'll never talk about the subject tonight if we don't.
This is gonna be an extra.
This is a special, guys. So everybody knows about the Utah monolith by now. This random thing pops up in the middle of the fucking desert in Utah, and then it disappeared this week. And but like the same day, or maybe the day after it disappeared, another one showed up in Romania. It looks a little bit different, because it looks like it's got some type of, I don't know. I think it's like meant to represent some type of writing or something on it. But there's pictures, you can find it, and there's video. It was a little bit shorter, and then it also disappeared. Like yesterday, I think.
Have you seen the pictures of them removing it?
Yes. So I saw that right before. Actually, which I guess is kind of good that, I don't know, this took a little longer, but I saw it right before we got on to record tonight. Someone sent me an article about it. But yes, apparently it's some group of guys that say that people are misusing the land or something. I don't know. I just think they're a bunch of assholes. I guess the one guy who actually came forward and said that he's the one that took it. He got a fine or something by the people that own that property back in like 2014. I can't remember what the company name is right now that owns the property. But they sued him or something because he was trying to like do some stunt or something on the property, and they weren't having it. And so they sued him, and he ended up having to pay them a bunch of money, and he was put on probation. So he kind of has a bone to pick with these people. And so he came out with a group of people, and there's pictures of him and other guys taking the monolith. So
they're like base jumpers that were like pissed off that like they can't do their stupid shit,
right?
And that like to jump off fucking cliffs, and like the Utah wildlife people are like, don't jump off those cliffs, you could die. So they took it upon themselves to remove this fucking thing. And there's video of them. So this is weird though, but like there was other photographers there taking pictures, and while they were there, these 4 base jump export fucking goons,
these fucking dude bros.
These dude bros. It's so crazy that you guys use that the fucking furries too.
Why?
Because that's something I thought that we came up with. Anyway, yeah, these Dubros showed up and tore the thing down, and then they found out that it was made out of sheet metal and plywood, which is like such like,
Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah. But that's
it was
still,
just crazy the way this whole thing like just dissolved into.
But we still don't know who put it there, so.
Well, I think that, and the fact that it was obviously made of shit that you can get at Home Depot. It was obvious. I'm gonna just say it was that art installation dude's thing, and that's why the other one popped up somewhere else, is because they just decided to do it somewhere else because they were under too hot.
Dead.
Yeah, I don't know.
He died way before it popped up. So it's definitely some type of art installation.
Yeah.
But, who? I'm still curious. I'd like to know. I'd like to solve the mystery still. But I'm curious. I think another one will pop up. I think it'll happen again in probably a couple of days, probably tomorrow. It probably already has by the time you guys hear this episode. But yeah, the Monolith saga just keeps going. I mean, it's
yeah, it's taken some interesting turns. This will be a good,
yeah, for sure.
The movie will come out, or I don't know. It seems like there's enough characters here for them to make yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I think it'll be something. But onto the
fucking base jumpers.
those damn dude bros and their base jumping. Those base heads. That's not.
I know, right? Thing. I just don't like dudes that are in shape. Period.
Fuck them for being healthy.
I know. Can you imagine being so healthy that like you climb rocks with your bare hands? Like, did you ever see that documentary that was like super popular?
No.
There's like this people that go mountain climbing. They don't use any kind of ropes. They free climb.
Yeah, I mean, I know about those people, but I would never do that.
I fucking know.
I'm not stupid. They all die, don't they? I mean, eventually,
eventually they fall off.
At the end of the documentary, they all just die in the end because eventually, if they haven't yet, they will. It's called.
They climb up the rock. When I used to be like super in shape, and I used to work out at Export. I don't know if they have Export Fitnesses by you.
No.
It's like a chain of gyms.
Okay.
And they have rock climbing walls. And I would sit there and like be lifting weights and watch these fucking assholes climb like halfway up the rock climbing wall and then fall off. And they would have like these like suspension systems on them so they wouldn't like really hit the ground. But I would like watch them for like 45 minutes 3 times a week. And then you go and you like these guys that like go to Yellowstone and try to like climb cliffs and then like fall off and die. It's like, who didn't see that coming?
Right. How did you not know? Like, that was like, come on, really?
I just can imagine these guys getting like 700 feet up in the air and be like, oh shit.
This was I regret this decision. It sucks. It does suck. It's very sad. I mean, it's a very unfortunate, circumstances, but at the same time, the risks that you're taking when you do it. So,
right.
It's more so than even just like getting in your car. Like everybody knows, you get in the car, you got, most people die from car accidents. You got pretty good chances, but I think your chances of falling off the side of a mountain are probably a lot greater when you don't have equipment.
I'll never forget this. In my last anecdote, I was at a job once, and like you're sitting around talking with coworkers at your lunch break, and someone brings up what's the worst way to die, and I'm like, oh geez, I don't know, and somebody goes, I wouldn't want to drown, and you're like, I'm like, yeah, that sucks. He goes, yeah, because you have time to think about how you fucked up. And how you shouldn't have done whatever you did the minute before you got it, like in the water. And that was this guy's biggest fear, is that he would die feeling like an idiot. Like, oh shit, I shouldn't have fucking like tried to swim in this cave or something, and I'm stuck in this cave now. Or oh shit,
it takes a long fucking time to drown too. It takes like even like when your lungs fill with water completely, it still takes like 10 minutes.
Oh my god,
that's a long time. It's
I can
crazy.
do without that.
Yeah, fuck that. I mean, everybody's like, what sucks worth drowning to death or burning to death, and I'm like, I think they both sound pretty awful. I would just, what's worse? They both suck. Just
right.
Not, that's not what I'm willing to choose. I've never done either, so I don't recommend them.
Yeah, I'll just go on my sleep. Thank you very much. That works.
Right, that's fine. That's that's all right. But anyway, so on to this week's topic, which is fine. I don't, I think everybody's going to be kind of surprised with my opinion on this week's topic. But we're going to talk about and this is how I'm going to pronounce it, the Wendigo.
Okay.
Pat, that's up to you what you're doing, but I've heard Wendigo. It, I don't know. Fucking, I don't know what it is. I'm going with Wendigo. That's what I've always called it. That's what it is.
Wendigo.
Wendigo.
we have those Midwestern accents. Wendigo sounds good. I'll drink the Kool-Aid on that.
So the Wendigo is. So I was actually asking a native friend of mine about what she knows about it, because it is a indigenous legend. And so anyway, so I was asking her about what it was, and she gave me all these different stories. So I think the most commonly believed one seems to be that it is a forest spirit that eats people. I mean, that's basically the basics of it. Sometimes it seems that the forest spirit will take on the shape of the people that they eat to then lure other people in, because it's always hungry. It's like a bottomless pit. Sometimes it will possess people. The spirit will possess people, and then they will turn into cannibals and eat people. Sometimes it's just lurking in the woods. There's so many different variations of it. What I find interesting is that a lot of the depictions that you see of it are like the skull face monster with like the deer horns.
Right.
But most of the time it doesn't seem to be that. Usually it looks more like a zombie. It's like gray skinned and looks like a person just kind of stumbling around. It's from what I can tell. So, and I actually I get this question a lot. A lot of people ask me personally if I believe that the Wendigo is real. And my answer is no. Especially after researching it. So I think that it was kind of I think the legend was kind of created to explain, because where it's most prominent at, and kind of why we're talking about it now here in December, is in like cold weather areas. And I think that the Wendigo was made up to explain how strange people act when they are suffering from hypothermia, because you'll go crazy. Like they'll take their clothes off and they're incoherent. They might try to eat people.
That's just a day that ends in Y over here. I don't know. You're describing a Tuesday.
Maybe you're Wendigo.
About 5 minutes before I hop on this podcast. That's usually
just
my house is like
eating people.
No, just naked, incoherent. Fucking chilly.
That's funny.
Wearing a bra.
Wearing your bra. Taking pictures in your bra.
Yeah.
Well, that explains a lot.
Right.
But yeah, I think it was something that was made up to explain those people.
I agree.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation actually with my mother-in-law earlier tonight, and I think that like you have to look at where the myth originated from, which is the Algonquin tribe in the Great Lakes region.
Right.
And what the climate is like. And you have the Midwest gets fucking cold in the winter.
Right.
And if you look at the time period when it kind of emerged, mankind for the longest time was, we followed the herds of animals around.
Right.
And it wasn't until we didn't have to deal with cold weather, because the animals weren't around in the cold weather. We would go south, or we'd go wherever the herd went. And once we were blessed enough to discover agriculture, that's when we started to kind of build settlements.
Right.
So now you're dealing with seasonal starvation issues, right?
Yeah.
Where those first couple generations, there were bad winters. You would lose crops. You would not have enough. They would be damaged because of floods or whatever, and you would have starvation. You would have cannibalism. It's something that and when the myths of the Wendigo first started reaching kind of, I guess, civilization, quote unquote. I mean, that goes back to like the 1600s. And when you had the Jesuit missionaries coming over here and spending time in the Great Lakes region, Quebec, mostly Canadian. It's kind of a Canadian thing, but it also
Yeah.
does have ties a little bit further south to where we're at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of documentation from the Wendigos because you had the Jesuit missionaries going into these areas
Right.
and encountering these myths about it. And, they would write back home to Europe about these supernatural, and of course this stuff gets sensationalized and it's a big deal, and
Well, when
they
you
think
see
that the new
somebody
world's
that goes crazy and they start turning, well, really, they would start turning gray and start taking their clothes off and acting insane and eating people, then what are you gonna think back then? What are you gonna?
well and cannibalism, I mean, if you look at certain situations, you don't even need to be going crazy from hypothermia. There was a whole entire soccer team that got lost in the Andes in that
Yeah.
plane crash
Yeah.
that had to eat their dead and had to turn to cannibalism. Like, it happens.
Isn't there a movie based on that?
Yeah, Alive.
Yeah. I think it fucked me up as a kid. I watched it when I was really young.
It's not that. What they cut open a fucking knee of a dead person and they eat a little
They
bit.
did. I remember.
They make such a big deal out of it, but it wasn't like that crazy. And it's bookended by John Malkovich in a smoky room telling the story. But
I just remember them cutting something off of someone and eating it. That's all I remember.
Yeah, they cut open like this knee that's like cold, and they're like, "Here we go,"
It's all
and
frozen and shit. I remember that. It's all like
yeah,
stuff.
it looked like you could cook it first at least. But yeah, they eat their dead. It's not like they were eating like living people. It was people that were already dead that died in the plane crash. So, I mean, cannibalism is such a fucking taboo with most modern societies that when for them to come over here and come across these native cultures that did it out of necessity because of isolation and Midwestern winters, it's easier to have an explanation. The devil made me do it.
Right.
It was the Wendigo that did it. And I think that's where, and the more you read about the legend, there is a schism between it as a cryptid and it as like a malevolent spirit of winter,
Well, yeah. So that is mostly the question is whether or not it's considered a cryptid, and it's like, well, so on the flip side of that, these people very much could have been encountering some type of strange beast in the forest that we didn't know existed. Maybe still does exist, maybe doesn't. I mean, maybe it died off, we don't know. But it's very possible that they discovered something that was terrestrial and normal, but they wrote it off as being some type of god or supernatural being, and it wasn't. And maybe it was violent towards them. I don't know. Maybe it ate people because it's an animal and that's what animals do.
Right.
It could have been Bigfoot. There's so many things that it could have been that are living. It could have been giant deer. It could have been moose. It could have been, because especially with the depictions, it could have been so much. Well, and then like I said, you've got the legends where it appears to be kind of, well, usually it's not skinless. It's like hairless and gray and strange looking. Could have been aliens,
Uh-huh.
It could have been so many things that we already kind of know about that, for it to be its own thing. I just think there's so much evidence against it being real and not enough for it to actually be a thing. I watched like a compilation video of like Wendigo sightings, whatever the fuck it's called. And every single one that you saw, it didn't look anything like what you would think it looks like. It was like people, almost kind of like more like skinwalkers. I don't know. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the idea of what.
Yeah, some of the descriptions I read is liken it to a werewolf in some respects.
Yeah, sometimes they're just little people, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like the one I'm pretty sure was just like a monkey. I think it was just. I'm pretty sure it was, but it wasn't good evidence. None of it's been good evidence, and so it's like, I don't want to totally write it off because this happens to be a lot of people's like favorite, mythical creature, and I understand that, but.
And why do you think that is? Like how would you? I guess
that's a really good question. Yeah, because why is it so popular now? I mean, what made it so? What has propelled it into pop culture? Because it, like I said, this seems to be. I mean, it's kind of like the Mothman. It's just for some reason, it's taken off, and I don't know. I'm not sure. Depictions, I guess, in movies. Wasn't wasn't there a horror movie about it? Oh gosh,
Pet Cemetery.
Pet
Well, the
Cemetery.
book.
Yes, it
I
was
don't.
a Pet Cemetery.
I think the remake. I saw the remake in the theater, but I don't remember how much they played into it. But I know that in the book itself, um, it is the spirit that inhabits the area past the pet cemetery where you go to bury the dead and they come back.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the name that Stephen King gives to the malevolent force that kind of governs that area.
Well,
and
what
and
was it
it really
called?
it's kind of sloppy storytelling on his part because he just throws a name that's already been established. There's not too many. There's nothing in any of the other Wendigo like legends and myths that have anything to do with reanimating the dead, right, or anything like that.
True.
And there's no cannibalism in the Pet Cemetery book or movies, right? So it's just kind of a name that he uses because it's like, well, they're in Maine and it's something that inhabits the woods, and I guess it kind of fits, and he just kind of uses it.
I haven't written about this yet. Let me just throw that out there.
Right, like just like, okay, here's some shit that that sounds vaguely people kind of maybe a little name recognition there, but yeah, his use of it doesn't really kind of hold up to the conventional descriptions of it. I 100% don't believe that it's a cryptid. I don't think that it's that it's some kind of creature that exists either singularly or that there's a lost tribe of them or something.
Yeah. Right.
I think, if when you start talking about, I think it could more than likely is a way that native cultures used to describe behavior
Yes.
that certain members of their tribe succumbed to in the winter when it was really dark and it was really cold and food was really scarce. And these tribes that were primarily nomadic for millennia now trying to set up shop places that were inhospitable 4 months out of the year.
Right.
And the nights are dark. We experience this now. I mean, I fucking dealt with this tonight driving home. We're in the time of the year in the Midwest where it is really fucking dark and really fucking cold.
Yeah.
And it's like a bummer to be outside your house
Yeah.
past 8:00 at night,
Mhm.
past 6:00 at night. Now imagine you're in a fucking teepee and on a plane somewhere, and the wind's howling and it's freezing out. You don't have any food, and you're freaking out because you don't know what you're going to do, and there's no heat, and you don't know if tomorrow is going to be any better than it was today, and it's going to be like this for the next 3 fucking months. You know what I mean? Like
That's another thing. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think that like living in these environments before technology really caught up to it took a psychological toll on these people.
Yeah.
And I think that this story and this myth is a manifestation of that.
I think so. Well, that was one thing that you mentioned that was interesting. You're like, oh, you're in the tent and the wind's howling outside. Well, the howling is associated directly with the
Right.
window. And it's like, if you guys, I don't know if you guys, all of you have experienced winter before, but if you have, in these cold areas, you can easily sit outside on a windy winter night and you can listen to it and it sounds like howling. I mean, it really is. So that would again be a primitive explanation for what they're hearing, because they just don't understand that the acoustics have changed because there's no more leaves.
Did you ever hear the story of the Russian, oh god, the Ural Mountains? They've tried to make a couple movies based on it, but I don't think the movies ever really got it right. There was these Russian scientists, and they were climbing up this mountain.
You're talking about the Dyatlov Pass.
Yes.
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 I do know about that.
Okay. So that's something where people don't know what it is. They think it's aliens, or they don't know when it happened, right?
Could be
So
Bigfoot.
basically,
Yeah. Yes.
Reader's Digest version for like the three people that are listening that don't know the story. There is this group of Russian scientists, and they were climbing this mountain, and disappeared. Were never heard from. They went back and they found their campsite, and it was like ripped apart, and like the people were found all over the place, like naked and shit, and like in the, you know what I mean?
Positions with weird stuff missing from their bodies, like
right.
parts that doesn't make much sense, you know.
and when you look at that case, that is a case where it kind of fits almost to like perfectly into the Wendigo mythology, right?
Yeah.
But if you also look at it as these people were fucked, they got lost on the mountain, they ran out of food, they suffered from hypothermia. That's why they stripped down naked. They fucking attacked each other, and then animals came and ate their fucking livers or whatever.
Right.
Like that makes sense too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the way I look at the Wendigo thing, was that I think it's a great example of a primitive culture. You know, much love for the Native Americans. I ain't talking shit, but like a primitive culture trying to explain like self-destructive behavior, man's self-destructive nature in the face of, you know, the cold dark winter.
And that was another thing too. I mean, that was another piece of the legend, because again, there's so many different, you know, if all the stories were the same, then I'd give it a little bit more evidence, but they're not. They're so wildly different. So another explanation for it is like, if you are overcome with greed, then you will turn into a Wendigo. And so, you know, it was just another way to, you know, just again, another religious way to control people and kind of make you do the right things, you know, so that way you didn't have that threat of, you know, turning into a monster basically. And so I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't seem very plausible to me. What I want to give a shout out real quick. I said I would. I promised I would, to my friend Shannon. She's my in real life friend Shannon. You guys might know her name's Shannon Gibbs. She's got a YouTube channel. It's called Under the Veil, and she's done videos on both the Wendigo and the Dead Love Pass. So,
oh, okay,
yeah. So that'll be a good source for you guys to go to. And she's a lot less critical than we are. So,
is that Cripple Tits?
Yes, yeah, yeah, that's her.
yeah. Please follow me back on Twitter. What the fuck?
Come on, Shannon. I don't think she listens to the podcast. So.
Of course not. I don't give a shit.
You know, she's a bitch. She's got nice boobs though. I've seen them. They're good.
Wow. I do too. Next.
You and your bra pictures, Pat. But no, she does a more in-depth, you know, kind of thing. And I know that she really got into it. She's really been into like history, so she's kind of been into this stuff, you know, a little longer. But I know what really kicked off the Wendigo stuff for her was playing the Until Dawn.
Werewolf. Until Dawn.
Until Dawn is some game on the PS something, on the PS4, I think. It was a really popular game, and the whole kind of narrative of it is that, I don't know, there's a Wendigo, and it's responsible for whatever the hell happens in the game. I haven't played it, so I don't know. I just know because she's told me a lot about it. So, and it was her favorite game for a while. But I think it was her favorite because it featured a Wendigo, and it was kind of not really talked about. You know, really, I just looked up a list of pop culture references to Wendigos, and there's not a lot. So it is weird to me that all of a sudden it's becoming a thing, and then also, you know, a lot of times when you go to research it, a lot of the stuff that you'll get is stuff about skinwalkers. They kind of go hand in hand. And I don't want to talk about skinwalkers yet, but, you know, eventually we will. But I think it's because both of those things are a good catch-all, because the legends are so vastly different that it could explain almost everything, almost every, you know, paranormal phenomena that happens. And I think that's why it's grown in popularity, is because, you know, people could take a video of just anything and be like, I don't know what that was, so it's a Wendigo or it's a skinwalker. You know, I think
right.
You know, it's just it becomes a good catch-all explanation for things, and so people are just like, oh, I didn't believe in it until I saw it, and it's like, but how do you know that's what it was? Could have been so many other things. If you're not versed in all the different creatures, I mean, then how would you know? Well, just like them. I mean, just like, the natives with the legends. Again, it definitely could have been something real. I don't think it was, but it could have been something that they just had no other explanation for because it's something they had never seen. So, and like I said, maybe it was violent towards them. Who knows? Who knows what the fuck it was? Could have been a dog man.
Oh, jeez.
Could have been a weather balloon. I don't know.
Right.
But it could have been, well, not a weather balloon, but definitely, I mean, it could have been a dog man. I mean, the descriptions of it also are so different. Like I said, there's no, what does Nessie look like? If I ask you what Nessie looks like, what does it look like?
It's like a brontosaurus.
Right. It's a plesiosaur. Right. And it always has been. It hasn't changed, and, well, some people think it could be something else, but the description of it hasn't changed. What does fucking Bigfoot look like?
Right.
It's a big ape. When you ask what a Wendigo looks like, well, it could be this weird hairless gray person, or it could be this weird scary skull-faced deer. I mean, which one is it? What does a skinwalker look like? Well, it can transform into anything it wants to. Okay.
Right. Well, I think what makes why the Wendigo hasn't been like nailed down so much is because it really is it hasn't been popularized like Bigfoot has or anything like that. And it's very, it's like the Yeti, but the Yeti is kind of synonymous with Bigfoot at this point. But this is like its own kind of creature that's got a strong Native American bent.
Sure.
That is cold climate, and there's all, you got to remember, there's people in Texas that don't worry about this thing at all. Right. There's people in California that like there's no kids in California losing sleep about the Wendigos tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
They don't even worry about it because it doesn't get cold there. So this is very regional. It's very specific to a certain region of the country,
right?
Certain people. And that prevents it from becoming widespread and there being kind of a pop culture consensus of what one looks like, right? Because it is kind of left to the fringes. There can be more discourse about, is it like this, is it like that? But like I said, I don't think none of it's real. I think that it's more of a, I would say if I had to name it as anything, I would call it a demon in the way that it is a negative aspect of man's nature.
Yeah.
That we have named and that we have labeled, but still remains abstract. I don't think that it's necessarily maybe if you really want to get woo woo, you can say that negative aspects of our character that are that strong can manifest, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's something that we all believe in. But I think, that's it. I don't think that there's like a tribe of these things. I don't think they're born naturally. They're not born of eggs. I don't think they,
No, I don't think they're
mothers.
Here. Right. If it's anything, I think it would have to be something spiritual.
Right.
I don't believe in most of that stuff, so I don't think that it exists. So that's me. I'm not the judge, jury, and executioner of weird shit. I wish, but
I think if people believe in something strong enough, it's very, people, the power of belief is strong.
It is,
sure. And
sure.
if enough people concentrate their beliefs in certain directions, that maybe reality could bend to man's will.
Sure.
But
and become
that's all I got there.
Maybe, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it. I think it's just an old tale. And I just don't think that there's anything else to it. And like we've, said multiple times, it's an explanation for the conditions of the time because, we don't see them now. They're not around. So, why aren't they coming out and attacking people? Especially if they're spiritual beings or there's some type of God. We're not a threat to them. They're stronger than we are. So where did it go? If it's here,
right?
We don't. Well, like you said about the abductions, that shit just doesn't happen anymore. So why not? I did find it interesting that there were a lot of, as they started kind of colonizing these areas more, which is a white person's way of saying killing all the Native Americans and stealing their land. They they started having interesting encounters where people would kill other people and claim that they did it because they were a Wendigo, and they really didn't know what to do with it,
Yeah.
because they didn't, they're like, well, but this thing's not real. But it's like, but if they are, do we punish this person, or it
Well,
was kind of an interesting thing for a while. It took a long time. It went into the hell. It even went into the 20th century. Was how long it took for them to decide, if that was considered murder or not. So, um, that was interesting. I guess that was nice of them to be considerate of the beliefs a little bit.
so here's a quote that I had copied
Yeah.
from 1D4chan. The first known written account of this legendary creature was by Paul Le Jeune, a Jesuit missionary serving in Quebec in the early 17th century. In 1636, Father Paul was sent a dispatch to his superiors in Rome, complaining about a local native woman who, in a spiritual trance, warned that an Achin was coming to attack a nearby village. The priest informed his superiors that the Achin was a sort of werewolf, and I guess Achin and Wendigo
are the same thing.
Yeah, go hand in hand.
So it could be a dog man. That's what,
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
It's just dog man. I mean, that makes sense. I don't know. I just, I'm not buying this one. I'm not buying what this one's selling. And
yeah, I agree.
I'm not.
But I think that it's interesting to keep in mind, just because it shows, because we're moving in. Obviously, it's the first week of December. We're moving into the dead of winter,
Right.
and that this is a time that of struggle for mankind, especially early man. Right. And that we met this time of year with fear and trepidation, and even created monsters to explain why we were so afraid of it. Right. And I think that's interesting. That deserves pause and reflection and study.
I agree with that. That's true.
Yeah.
So. I mean, my God, thank God for central heating. And
7-Elevens. Shit. I don't have to eat my neighbor because I can go to 7-Eleven, get some fucking chili cheese Fritos and a Mountain Dew.
You don't need to do that anymore, guy. It's nice. Yeah, we don't have to worry about those things. It is nice. I think it's always an interesting topic to talk about, primitive practices and things like that. Like cannibalism to me is very interesting. I'd like to do a whole episode on it eventually. But
well, yeah, I think in this case though, it would be done out of necessity, but there was still that taboo that you're not supposed to eat your dead. So if you're not supposed to eat your dead, but you're in a situation where you literally have to, or else you die yourself, if it's a matter of survival, then it's a way to kind of justify why someone might have done it. And it's also a way to demonize someone for doing it because, they're a Wendigo now. They must be possessed by a beast because they ate the dead. And there's a way to, there's always been cultural taboos, and we go to great lengths to enforce them. And don't jerk off, or you'll get hairy palms, or you'll go blind, or whatever.
Sure.
That's just kind of what we do as a people.
We were never told anything weird like that. At least I wasn't as a girl. I was always allowed to masturbate. Nobody ever was like, "Don't do that."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. No one ever like walked in the room and like smacked my hand away.
I was like, stop doing what you're doing.
I went to great lengths to get caught. I don't think it wasn't until like my junior year of high school where I was talking to my buddies about it. And one of my friends was like, your mom knows you jerk off. I'm like, no, she doesn't. And they were like, she's lived with you for 17 years. Like, she knows like when you're in the other room doing something weird. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you're probably right.
She definitely knows. She definitely knew.
Oh, don't talk about that.
We'll talk about parenting soon.
Yeah, what are we gonna do that?
It's coming.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think I really have anything else to say about the Wendigo. I think I believe my theory about Right Pat more than I do the Wendigo. So
yeah,
personally. All right then, guys. Well, that's what I think. That's my universal answer. Are Wendigos real? No. Are they cryptids? No. There you go. That's it.